Welcome to ReThink You, bringing you ideas, inspiration, and motivation to start living the life you were created to live. Here is your host, author, trainer, speaker, and coach, and founder of ReThink You, Kim Lovings.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the ReThink You podcast. I appreciate people who've been subscribing and commenting on both the YouTube channel and on the podcast feed. So keep it up. I think we're gaining momentum, and I'm excited about the queue of speakers that we have coming up in the weeks ahead. And today, especially, I'm really privileged to introduce you to George Hendley. You know, George founded George Hendley Presentations. It's a training, coaching, consulting firm back in the 90s. And then in 2011, George started the Speaker Academy, making that his primary focus for 10 years. George coaches business leaders who want to speak with confidence, and we all know the importance of that. George has also authored over 150 articles on various timely and relevant topics, and they include presentation skills, listening, leadership, attitude, and understanding body language, just to name a few. George also co-authored Meditations for the Road Warrior, together with 10 other professional speakers. So just some great stuff. And I enjoyed meeting George, and I look forward to bringing him to you. George's zeal for learning and desire to coach others makes him a passionate, enthusiastic, and skilled presenter. So George is eager to help you on your learning and life quest. So George, why don't you kick us off by telling me, why are you so passionate about learning, and why do you feel that is one of the master skills, or the master skill?
Yeah. Well, that was my opening statement right there, Kim. Learning is the master skill. And when people really embrace that, and they understand if they're going to get ahead in any aspect of life, be it whatever it might be, it always starts with good learning, because actually good learning precedes good thinking. And I also say all the time to my speakers, I just sent out an article this morning with that reminder: good speaking always begins with good thinking. But to even back it up further, good thinking begins with good learning. You know, we have five things or ways in which we learn, you might say. They're called the five senses. And we sometimes forget about all five senses as being part of the learning avenue. We really learn to pick up little nuances and little things: hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. We are alive with learning every single day. And learning, in my opinion, also is the great adventure that we go through in life. The more we can learn, the greater our success will be.
That's wonderful, George. Thank you. And, you know, tell us also, if we could back up a little, maybe tell us some of how you got started in this. You know, what did you do in your own career when you first began, and what led you into training and coaching others in these various skills?
Yes. Well, Kim, I'll back up even further than that slightly, because quite frankly, I was not a good learner, and I missed the early train that I should have been on to really become a learner. It wasn't until my senior year in college, a mental commitment to learning. Believe it or not, I entered my senior year, and I'm not proud of this, but it's the facts, with a 2.0 GPA. That is the lowest C level that you can have. Again, I'm not proud of that, but it was what it was. I was more in tune with athletics and being a jock and a college football player. But finally, I got my brain right, and I realized I needed to start improving in this arena. And I remember the day registering for my senior classes, and literally leaving the registration, I just said a simple prayer. And that prayer was to lead me to a new direction in my life as a learner. And I finished my senior year in college with a 3.5 plus GPA in my senior year. And that helped. It was transformative to me, because all of a sudden I realized I wasn't dumb. I was just lazy or unknowledgeable about how to learn up until that point in time. So since that point, I've had an onward arc, or whatever that is, that angle towards learning and learning. And you can see one behind me. And it's because I love to absorb a variety of different kinds of information, because it makes me a better person. And my end result or goal is, if I can learn more to help others, then I feel truly successful in my role as a coach, a mentor, a teacher, and someone who's trying to lead others into a better life.
That's powerful, George. Thank you for that. And I think that learning to learn, because I'm a thinking coach, so I always talk about people, thinking is at the root of everything. And as you said, it's thinking, but it's also learning to learn. So you talk about training and coaching new speakers on 11 core skills of speaking. How do you actually help them learn and apply those skills, especially based on your own background of reading and personal growth? How do you pass that on?
That I recognized a number of years ago was that if we can simplify the learning process, then we can help people not just receive, but hold on to the information that they get. And I pulled this great little book off of my shelf this morning, Accelerated Learning. And this has been one of those great reference points for me. And I talk about it to other people, that if they learn how to accelerate their learning by way of applying certain very simple keys. We learn, as an example, this will hopefully be humorous, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. We put the alphabet to a song, and that is a great memory key, to put things to a poem or a song or something that, again, triggers in our memory. Why is it we can hear just a few bars of a song that and then continue to pick up and remember it? It's because the music triggers an aspect of our brain that we are able to hold on to those words and then do something with it. So all of those memory keys come to bear. I talk about the 3 V's in delivery of your message. Those 3 V's are visual, vocal, verbal, the 3 V's. And under the 3 V's, you have the 11 core skills, 5 in the visual, 4 in the vocal, and 2 in the verbal. And when people begin to see the bigger picture and how it breaks down very simply, very accurately, they begin to absorb it and recognize if they can master those 11 core skills, they're going to be on top of the game, whether it's a virtual presentation like what you and I are doing right now, or a face-to-face presentation. It all works under the principle of learning and then applying what you learn.
That's powerful. Thank you, George. I was just mentioning to somebody yesterday how our brain thinks in pictures, and having a picture, as you said, those songs, those are pattern generators that the brain stores, that helps recall. So visual, verbal, and what was the third one?
Vocal, visual, vocal, and verbal. Yes.
Okay. So vocal is how you're saying, and verbal is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. And there is a difference, obviously. I can use the vocal aspect of my voice to speak very softly or really loud, because volume is one of the 4 aspects of the vocal delivery. And very simple things like pacing, which is speed. I can speak very slowly, or I can speak very, very rapidly if I want to. And it all comes back to, what are you trying to get across to your audience? And how are you trying to interact with them in a way in which they receive the message and retain the message to do something with the message?
That's powerful. Yes, thank you for that. And I was smiling when you were singing that song, because, I'll share this personal story, because I know my listeners are getting to know me, but I have a 3-year-old or almost 3-year-old grandson. And he and I have a standing joke that long ago, when he's more like 2.5, I taught him that 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, close the door, that song. We started singing it in the car, but he latched onto, so he stored the pattern, 7, 8, buckle the gate. And then he shrieks with laughter. So he's like, buckle the gate. And he laughs. So it's become the standing joke. And I thought, I wonder if he'll go to college still saying that 8 stands for buckle the gate. But I just love that because, that's how our brains learn. And I think that what you're doing, George, is fulfilling just a great niche in business, in that the ability to present, as you said, present well in a way that people remember your message is a skill that, unless you're going to go into speaking and consulting and coaching like some of us do, the average business leader perhaps doesn't think of that as a strength that would really benefit them. So tell me some examples of clients that you've coached and how you've helped them at speaking, and also how that skill and that learning to do with speaking has helped their business skills.
Yes. Well, one gentleman pops in my mind immediately. His name is Joe, and he's a financial advisor, very, very successful man. And he came to me a number of years ago and said, hey, George, I've got the chance to go to China and address some younger college age students in China. But honestly, I don't know how to do that or do that well. And quite frankly, I'm nervous about that. I said, Joe, we began the coaching process, and I began helping him recognize that he had been speaking already for over 50 years and had no problem talking to 1 or 2 or 3 people at a time. So I just began to help him recognize that, number one, most of the time, whatever fear or uncomfortableness we have on the inside, the audience doesn't see it. They don't see it. Now, if you say you're nervous, then they'll know. But if you don't say anything about it, they won't see it. I started in quite a number of high school and football games. And at the beginning of every game, Kim, I had the nervous butterflies until that first 2 or 3, smacks. And then all of that went away because I then got into the focus of the game and in doing my job. And that was the focus of where I stayed for the entire 60 minutes of the game. The same holds true when we're in the moment in delivering the message. If we're thinking about not ourselves, but we're thinking about how can I help this person or these people in a way, again, that will in some way benefit and enlarge their life, then we take that uncomfortable spotlight off of ourselves, and actually we turn the spotlight on them, because really that's the heart of the direction of our message. It's back on them, and it takes time. It's not going to be a snap your finger and happen overnight. Practice, then people begin to unwind themselves and become more comfortable in their skin, and they feel that nervous jitter go away completely, or at least dramatically minimize, and they can then smile and deliver a message that they know is going to help their audience.
That is so good. Thank you, George, because it is a great reminder. As we said, a lot of this internal nervousness, I know as a speaker and some of my fellow speakers, we say, it's a form of self-centeredness if you get too focused on your own thing, because people don't really care, as you said, is turning the spotlight back on the audience. What is the message that they need to hear? And again, you just bring to mind an amusing example. So I'm just going to share one quick story again that,
Please.
years ago, I was going to be a speaker at some women's breakfast or something. And this is when I was still living in California. And I remember standing in my closet that morning, and I had been going to this group for a while, and I couldn't figure out what to wear, because I'm like, well, what did I wear the last time I was with them? I don't want to wear the same outfit. And I thought, if I can't remember what I wore, the chances are they can't either. So we get too head up about things, and we sort of overthink things, and people don't care. They're there to hear the message. They're there to hear what we teach them. So thank you for the story about Joe. That's wonderful. And any others that come to mind, George, that you'd like to share? What other types of leaders have you worked with?
Well, the message that I shared with a group of people just the other day in one of my free coaching sessions, I said, look, remember guys, everybody has imprinted across their forehead, WIIFM. What's in it for me? They're not concerned about you. They're focused is on themselves. It's off of ourself and put the focus of doing something good for them. Then they walk away going, wow, that was a valuable 5 minutes or 50 minutes or 5 hours. Another guy I coached, he was a lawyer. And again, with, mega brains, very smart guy. He had first earned a CPA, and then he went back and got his law degree. So he was, and graduated, I think, Summa or Magna. He was just a really brainy guy. But when it came to standing in front of a group of people, you could see he was a little stiff and he wasn't natural. And he, again, just needed to become comfortable in his skin and so much good stuff to share with his audience. And when he put the good stuff in his mind and then began to talk about it in a logical, systematic, and fun-oriented way, then he saw the audience's reaction. They were rooting for him. They were, in a sense, cheering for him. And he became a much more impactful, confident speaker. As a matter of fact, he went on and delivered a great TED Talk to a large audience in Kansas just a few years back. So, you can start way down here, but if you're willing to put in the work and do the process over a period of time, you can grow, you can develop, and you can even surprise yourself. The question, Kim, is this: how good do you want to be? There it is.
That's such a good thing. And, how good do you want to be? And, I'm thinking back to what you said about us learning about learning. I know you agree with this too, that speakers and writers and consultants are voracious readers. We have to be, because you're taking in new content all the time, because you're giving out content as fast as you're learning it, you're teaching it. Just such important skills. So, George, again, just to kind of flip the switch a little and say, let's talk personal. What are some of the life lessons that you've learned through life that have sort of taught you things to help you grow as a person that you'd like to pass on to others, besides the speaking and the learning? But, what other life lessons can you think of?
Nobody gets to the top by themselves. Nobody ever climbs the highest peak by themselves. And when you really recognize, you live in Colorado, there are, I think, over 50 14,000 plus peaks in Colorado that people are constantly scaling or trying to scale. The really wise ones never attempt it by themselves. They know they need, in a sense, a group or a team to be able to, surmount or go to the top of that mountain. So it's in surrounding yourself with the very best people you can find and recognizing where your strength lies, and then where you need someone who has a different strength to be there to support, guide, encourage, help you in that whole growing, learning, mountain climbing experience. Because again, nobody makes it to the top by themselves. Sir Edmund Hillary didn't, and every group that has ever climbed Mount Everest, they never did a solo climb. Never. So that's a biggie right there.
That's a good one, George. Thank you. Yeah, don't do it alone. We are not meant to be islands. And, what else can you think of? What other lessons did you learn? Maybe by actually making mistakes, because failure is the best teacher. But maybe share with us a couple of failures that you had that resulted in growth.
I mean, to go there, Kim, because every speaker has those moments where they go, oh no. And early on in my development, I was doing, every presentation I could. It didn't matter whether I was free or paid or whatever. And I remember one day getting in front of a local service organization. It may have been a Rotary or Alliance. I don't remember because it's so many years ago. But I had I'd done what I felt was pretty good preparation going into the presentation, but I got about 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes into the presentation, and all of a sudden it was just like, whoop. And I was like, ah. But here again, piece of information that had been passed on to me by another professional speaker. That person said, very simply, when you hit a blank place in your mind, ask the audience for the last two things they heard you say, and then it will trigger where you go next. And I did. I said, guys, let's do a real quick review of what I've already covered with you. And when the person said this and the next person said that, it was like, beep, then everything dropped into place. And it was just like one of those life-saving moments. Oh, I got another one, Kim. I got another one, and you'll really appreciate this. I went to Georgia, this even years ago. And of course, I'm in Central time zone and they're in Eastern. And I arrived at the hotel pretty late in the evening and I was very fatigued. And so I had like, I think like a 9 o'clock breakout session. Well, the thing unfortunately I didn't do was reset my clock for Eastern time, and I left it unfortunately on Central time. So I'm always typically an hour ahead of time as far as getting up, doing room setup, etc. And I got there like my typical hour ahead of time, and there were already 3 people in the room. I'm going, wow, these guys are really early. And I, get my setup pretty much done and finished. And I turned to them and said, what gets you into the room so early this morning? And one guy looks at his watch and he says, well, according to my watch, it's about 10 minutes after 9. Oh my goodness. And what an embarrassing moment it was.
No, as you said, what you're sharing now is kind of every speaker's nightmare, either arrive too late or in the wrong place. And then also, when you have those mind blank moments. And I know a lot of speakers and consultants listen to my podcast. So thank you for that bit of advice about having the audience recap. I know that I tend to be far more sort of transparent, and often I just say, okay, and I've just completely forgotten what I was talking about. Somebody asked me a question, get me back on track. But I think that there's a sense of just being real and connecting with people. And just because you happen to be the voice in the front of the room doesn't mean to say you're not human, that you're not going to make mistakes, but people learn from those. So thank you, George. Those were some great stories. And as you've gone through your career, what gifts or talents do you see in yourself that have sort of come to the top, that have risen up and rise and shine and say, gee, this was a talent or a gift I wasn't aware of when I was young, that I now see within myself as a result of my development?
Kim, I've learned through the years that I have what's called a teacher's heart, and maybe alongside the teacher's heart, I have the heart of a mentor. And I knew before I ever left high school that I wanted to be what I thought at that point in time was a teacher and a coach. And the recognition through the years, over and over and over again, coming back to who I am as a person, and recognizing that my greatest strength is in my desire to teach and raise others up because of what I've taught them. The recognition, deeper recognition that I came from was this: my involvement in athletics helped me develop confidence. Thus, I wanted to help others be involved in athletics for the same purpose, because I knew confidence was what we'll call part of the platform for a successful life. Now, I still believe that. And that's why I say I work with business leaders who want to speak with confidence. If they don't have confidence, it will show, it will, nothing will work, because people will sense it, smell it, recognize it, and they will shake like a leaf. But building confidence over a period of time, typically with great skill development and practice, it sets the platform for a successful life. And it just, you don't snap your fingers and get it. It's called WORK, work. Do the work.
Very much so. Thank you for that. Because yeah, I say that, confidence is something you can develop, and it does take work. It does take practice and learning. And confidence too is just a healthy sense of self, and not
Absolutely.
trying to be something that you're not. So I think that sometimes people put this whole sort of mystery around confidence, and they don't realize that you can actually develop that. So that's fabulous. So,
Yes.
George, tell me, when people approach you, how do you get started, with coaching a business client, for example? And we will have all your information in the show notes if people want to connect with you. And you and I, of course, have had offline connections, so you know that I'm a coach as
Yes.
well. But I coach on people's thinking, how they
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
and you focus specifically on helping get that confidence to become a speaker. So if somebody wants to engage with you, how would they do that? What's
Well,
the process?
I'm, a lot of places out on the internet, as we all are, because we're looking again to help as many people as we possibly can with the number of hours we have in a day. And so I am out on Facebook, Speakers Academy. I'm, of course, on LinkedIn, and I really love and stay very active on LinkedIn. So I'm in both of those places. I have my own website, of course, thespeakersacademy.com. So a variety of places they can find me. And it just comes down to, well, you can Google George Hendley and find me that way, because I'm splashed here, there, and everywhere. If you see me on a poster in a post office, just ignore it. That's not really me.
That's wonderful. But if somebody, what do you think somebody can expect if they actually contact you and say, all right, I'm going to do this? What does your process look like? Can you give us an example
Sure,
of what your coaching roadmap is?
sure. Well, in the medical arena, Kim, they say you do not prescribe until you've diagnosed. In other words, no prescription without a proper diagnosis. And so I go through the same process. When I go back and look again at the early, they would put us through a variety of different tests: speed test, agility test, strength test, jumping test, all of these tests, just to see how we panned out in a variety of physically oriented types of tests. And the same thing holds true for people today. I don't have a cookie cutter approach. I find out as much as I possibly can about the person. And part of that obviously includes, where do they want to go? Some, are happy hitting this level. Okay, good. Let's hit that level. Others want to go, up here. And I'm like, okay, how good do you want to be? So it comes back to understanding the person as deeply as I possibly can, to ferret out the strengths that they have, to understand their experience and what they've experienced or done in the past, and then to find out, where do they want to go, so that I can, again, know them and the best way to take them in and through this whole learning process. Again, it's not a cookie cutter approach. I try to, as much as possible, customize my session for the person and help them on a very individualized basis.
Great, George. Well, thank you so much. And, my final question is always, there's two questions. The one is, what are you focused on right now? What's your big goal for 2021? Because I know somebody like you've been in business a long time, and yet your heart and your passion is still there to train and equip. But what's your goal for this year? Where's your focus?
Yes, in the business arena, my focus is to continue to use my talents, my years of experience, and lock in with the best people for me to lock in with. Everybody is not my client. I know that. And I have literally turned away people, found out what they were expecting or what they wanted. That's hard, Kim. That's real hard. But I won't take someone on if I don't feel they're the right person for me and I'm the right person for them. So when people approach me, again, it's a sit down and get to know them and get to know who they are, what they're about, where they want to go, and then make that determination. Because honestly, I have stood before the wrong audience in the past. And every time I did it, I was like, why did I do that? That was not the right audience for me. And so finally, I'm at that point in life, I'm more selective in the light of the audience, be it an audience of one or a big audience. And in doing that, I put myself in the best place possible to in turn help that person. So the bigger picture goal this year is continue to enlarge my sure in that process that I've got the right people that I'm working with.
That's fabulous. Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. And that's something I know we've spoken about offline, about being selective about who we work with. And I have the same process where I say, to folks, I have a 2-hour conversation with somebody before I ever take them on as a client. And same thing, we're not all matched to coach everybody. And then finally, George, what, as people would walk away from this or drive away, some people listen to podcasts while they're driving, what would you hope they remember about you? If they said to a colleague, hey, I listened to a great podcast today, Kim interviewed George Hendley, and someone's like, who's George Hendley? What would you like them to remember?
Wow, that's a deep question, Kim. What would I like them to remember is that that I am just like them. That I am just like them. I bleed, I breathe, I have wants and needs, I have fears and apprehensions. Thus, I can identify with the same things that they are faced with, and because of a lot of years behind me, I think I might be able to help them. So he's just like us. He's one of us. That's me.
That's wonderful, George. Thank you so much. And yeah, don't stress about barking dogs in the background. This is the days of everybody working from home. And at least you didn't have a cat filter on. And you didn't have a cat filter on. That's all that matters, right? So thank you so much for that, George. And I really appreciate you being on the podcast. I will remind people that if you want to know how to connect with George, we're going to have all the information in the show notes on rethinkyou.com at the podcast feed, as well as on YouTube. This will be posted on YouTube for those of you who want to look at the video. So, George, thanks again for your time. Any final words as we close out?
Yes, Kim. The final words are thank you, because you invited me and I was more delighted that we had this time together. Kim, thank you.
Thanks so much, George. You have a wonderful day.